Let's get straight into the matter with three of you, Captain Aliyu Umar, retired, Mr. Mike Ejiofor, former DSS boss, as well as Oladehinde Ariyo. Now, you have maintained that Nigeria is at the precipice, Mr. Mike, but regional actors like Kanu, arrested just 2 days ago and brought back to face judgment in Nigeria over agitation for a state of Biafra. Has he set a rope to his neck, do you think, to hang himself? Let's start with you, Mr. Ejiofor.
Well, I have maintained the position over this Kanu's position. First is that he was on bail. While he was on bail, before his appearance in court, the military went and invaded his house, which led to his escape or jumping bail, if you like. And when he jumped bail, I just felt he would have remained calm, talking to his people, trying to achieve his mission, talking to them that he still believes in his cause. One thing I must make clear here is that Kanu, I believe in his cause, but I detect his approach. A situation where he will be abusing people in constituted authority, abusing the sovereignty of Nigeria. You see, we agree, every Igbo man, not only just Igbo people, agree that some injustice is being meted out to certain sections of the people. But these are issues that I think should be negotiated or discussed, without violence. People say Kanu is not violent, but like the ESN, for instance, Eastern Security Network, has pointed out that they were not responsible for the killings in the southeast, burning down of government institutions, INEC, correctional facilities. They say they are not responsible. But we've not been able to know the people who are behind all this. They are described as unknown government. And,
No. I think a statement has come out. A statement has come out very clearly. The DSS have admitted that they carried out this style of arrests in this situation.
I was coming to that because there's been a lot of confrontation between the members of the ESN and security forces, where they even alleged that they went and bombed some areas. So if they are claiming they are not people responsible for it and no arrests have been made, it becomes a problem to pin down this on ESN or the conspiracy theory that there are people, other people who are doing this that are not behind this. So it's now the responsibility of government to investigate and find out. You will also recall that some politicians, including the governor, have said that they are aware of people who are behind this, not necessarily mentioning ESN, they are politicians. So who do we believe? It's a big problem that needs to be solved.
Okay, Captain, let me come to you now. What do you make of this situation? Is this capable of degenerating into civil unrest?
That will depend on how the situation is handled going forward. I'll tell you why, and good enough, I have a senior colleague in the House, so he will bond with what I've said more, and Mr. Ariyo is also not new to our kind of business. You see, within the intelligence community, we see a lot strategically, and we analyze things as we see. Kanu's arrest has to be handled very carefully because right from the beginning, when it all started, we should have understood that there are stakeholders. Stakeholders here are not necessarily friends of Biafra or enemies of Biafra or friends of the government or enemies of the government. Stakeholders could be positive and negative stakeholders. They have a stake in what is happening. The situation at hand right now with Kanu in detention, he is in detention for having jumped bail, fine. He is going to be given a free and fair trial for jumping bail, fine. But Kanu has to be handled carefully, and carefully in the sense that the antecedents or precedents of his situation make him very vulnerable. A lot of people will jump on the bus of a crisis. That crisis scenario we are seeing has its dividends for different people with different interests. I tell you because tending high-profile detainees is not new to me. While I was in service, I was privy to how high-profile detainees are tended. And depending on who the detainee is and depending on what he's being detained for, there are interests for and against him on both sides. So Kanu is actually in a chess game now. And if you play chess, there's a move we call the Queen's Gambit. It's looking similar to what you call the Queen's Gambit. Let me just stretch your minds a bit. I can't tell you for free, I can, that right now there are groups that will spare nothing in terms of money to ensure that he doesn't come out of detention. And don't forget, the people that will cook his food and serve his food and handle him are not IPOBians. They run across a general, what you call, front of different people from different places.
Are you painting the same scenario we saw with the Abacha death?
That's what I'm saying, that within our profession, particularly with my brothers in the DSS, they should now adopt an all possibility mode of thinking. All possibility thinking simply means you are doing no box thinking. I tell you why. Kanu himself right now is a very expensive chip. There are people who have interests for and against him right within the Southeast and even within IPOB. There are people with ambitions in Biafra and in IPOB. Likewise, even within the federal parastatal, the same thing. So basically, when you have this kind of situation, the first thing we should be looking at is the Kanu himself is under what I can call a protective custody of sorts. But even within that protective custody, his inner cordon of handlers have to be very, very circumspect, as in very circumspect. Don't forget, the government just said they already have a list of people who have been mentioned or involved in, what do you call it, this issue of violence and whatever it is that has informed or attended the Biafran movement or the IPOB movement. These people are not going to sit down and wait for you to mention their names or even bring Kanu to court tomorrow to come and say yes and testify. So Kanu himself becomes what you can call a very expensive chip. He is useful to the government, and his welfare or state of being is also useful to other interest groups. So if as an intelligence officer, I was to handle the situation with him, you see that he is actually a very expensive chip. He has to be handled very carefully because where we take it from here is going to inform a lot of possible outcomes.
Okay, let me put you on pause there. Let me put you on pause because I can see that Oladehinde Ariyo is eager to say one or two words. But before I get to you, Mr. Ariyo, let me very quickly ask Mr. Ejiofor again. Mr. Ejiofor, since Captain says that Kanu is a very, very expensive chip to the government at the moment, what do you make of his submission? How expensive is Kanu right now to the East?
So I don't know what it means by Kanu being expensive, but I can tell you, like I've said in my previous interview, Kanu has a lot of followership among the youths who are either misinformed or misguided. You know, because I believe, like I said, the best approach, this is a political problem and requires a political solution. I don't see government going out to negotiate with the IPOB, which has been classified a terrorist organization. But for political exigency I think while the prosecution of Kanu is ongoing, government should also look for other options, other alternatives of trying to resolve this problem in the interest of peace. Because if you look at when Kanu, though that would not be a yardstick for judgment, some people will say, well, we don't want to go out. When you get the order that people should not come out, people sat down and it was complied with. Even government, people don't comply completely with some government directives. But another reason could be given for that. People are afraid not to be caught on crossfire. They decide to stay at home, either between the ESN or the IGBOHO and the security agencies. They decide to stay safe at home. So that could be the reason. What I'm saying is that Kanu has a lot of large followership in among the youths.
Do you think that could fuel any sort of crisis?
You never can tell. In security field, anything can spark up a problem. But at the same time, I want to prevail on the elders, the elite, to continue to prevail on the youths. The elders should now come out to speak and talk to government and see how this matter will be resolved, because it will do nobody any good. I witnessed the war, and most of the people who are clamoring for war now didn't witness the war. And no country survives the second civil war. That is not possible. That people who have cases are not justified. It's not only the South. You have clamor in the Southwest, you have Arewa people, you have middle belt people come from. So we need to restructure this country to accommodate true federalism. And people not feeling marginalized or sort of injustice being meted. I think that is the root cause and the basis of all these problems.
These actors of agitation, we've seen them, they've come and gone repeatedly, and Nigeria has always remained united and unified. But in this case, it seems to be the biggest ever that we have seen in the history of this country. Let me get to you, Mr. Ariyo. What are your thoughts on Kanu's arrest as a professional security expert? Do you think that Kanu's arrest portends any form of potential chaos for our country?
For me, it's neither here nor there. But when you bear in mind that Kanu has massive followership within the southeastern youths, and these youths, from their body language so far, they do not care. They have no fear of death. And you know, in literature, they say that you do not threaten a man with death, he that does not care to die or has no fear of death. So it's important that the federal government not only serves justice, but it must be seen to have been served. Yes, he jumped bail, that's established, but if you remember that previous interviews, I have mentioned at the beginning of all of these things that the southeastern leaders should call Kanu in and engage with him. The question we want to look at is, number one, are there reasons for agitation? Yes. But the methods that are being applied, are they right? And I will say no. Why? More lives have been lost mindlessly and needlessly in the southeast, either due to attacks from within or the armed forces trying to clear the road and make southeast safer. But nobody is listening.
Hold on. Who are those committing the attacks? Who are those committing the killings in the east?
God bless you. The general language or name or title given to them is unknown gunmen. Unfortunately, everyone seems to be hiding behind the finger by claiming unknown gunmen. So we will leave it at that and say unknown gunmen.
But what do you think? What do you think? What's your own interpretation of unknown gunmen?
Well, you must understand that copiously, members of the ESN have been attacked, they've been killed, and of course, they've also been accused of being behind some of these killings. Okay, but they have also continued to deny that they were not. On the same side, federal government has been invading some parts of the southeast, arresting, sometimes engaging area warfare without also admitting, that there were casualties. But we all know that in these situations, lives definitely must get lost. But my position is this. I would rather the federal government serve justice and let it be seen to have been served, while at the same time create this platform to attend to every marginalization or injustice or whatever complaint people have across Nigeria. It's not just about Kanu or IGBOHO now. It's about people from different corners of Nigeria complaining that they have not been fairly treated in the Nigerian project. And
okay,
this is the truth. It reflects in appointments and several other.
Let me come in here.
Hello?
Tell us, are these claims valid? Let me read for you so you can get. The government did not protect my family from the herdsmen who killed, raped, kidnapped, and also collected ransom from my people. I have done nothing wrong. I have to come out and defend my people. Now that's coming from Sunday IGBOHO that you've just mentioned. But tell me those points that he mentioned. Are they valid?
Now, while it is true that Southwesterners across the land have faced deaths, rapes, and farms being destroyed, we must distinguish between the headers who were criminals and those Fulani that came from outside Nigeria who were bandits. Okay? You will not see the two different cases, but none of them definitely is acceptable to anybody or to any woman settlement. And like I said, approach matters. No supreme power authority will fold its arms and allow itself to be so challenged and eroded into losing out. Power is never served a la carte. If you doubt me, ask them in Catalonia, in Eritrea, even in Kashmir. They will tell you it was not a tea party. Southern, that is Sudan, that was one nation before, that is today, Sudan and Southern Sudan, they had their own bitter pills to swallow. Notwithstanding, for us as a nation to reinvent Nigeria, because for me, it is no longer a case of restructuring. It has gone beyond that. It's no longer a case of personal amendment. It has gone beyond that. The country has to be reinvented. And how? By the federal government extending hands of fellowship to virtually every interest, every ethnic group.
Now we have moved from restructuring to reinventing the country, according to you. But let me flip this to Mr. Captain Aliyu before I come to Ejiofor again. Again, these allegations, we found AK-47 rifles, bullets, passports, international passports. We found charms in Mr. Sunday IGBOHO's residence. Do you think the style of invasion or arrest, if you will, that was conducted by the DSS, do you think that is standard? Is that a standard practice, would you say?
Well, it depends on the imminent threat type or what was impending, which they were seeking to debunk or prevent, as the case may be. We do not have information as regards what exactly informed the raid at his residence and at the time it was conducted. So basically what is coming across to the public is like they had to, maybe they use a sledgehammer to kill a fly. But having said that, if you look at the scenario again on the aggregate where we are in the country and the frequency of these agitations as they come up, what I think is happening is the regulatory authorities or the security agencies seem to be thinking it's becoming trendy now to actually take up to violence and mass mobilization for self-determination. And probably they want to make a deterrent or bold move to begin to discourage that. And that is where my own position lies, going back to Kanu. My colleague, Mr. Ejiofor, said he doesn't know what I mean by expensive. Swap the word with costly. You've just told us that he has a large youth followership. So if anything goes awry, now that he's in detention, it will be a very costly reprisal. We also know that even within the Southeast, there are other stakeholders whose interests are threatened. Stakeholders that are the status quo anti-informed and would love to see their own stakes in. Look, it's a cloak and dagger situation. So going forward, we really have to be very careful. As Mr. Ariyo has said, there are a lot of misgivings, yes. There are a lot of what you can call agitations, yes. The manner, the way with which it is being approached is where the quandary is. Most of those who are actively involved have no idea whatsoever what a civil war situation is like. And for those who are at the helm of affairs who know, it is now up to us to begin to sit down and carry on in a way that will begin to show that, yes, there is room for what you can call dialogue. There is a room for us to jojo, and then let those who will rather jojo be known and those who will not want to jojo be known. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, it falls on the federal government to be magnanimous, to be mature, to also maintain a position of superior argument and not to go into scuffle or fisticuffs with these people, because as I told you, nobody that is active in there, including Kanu himself, has any idea about what a war situation actually portends.
All right, let me get the final words from Mr. Ejiofor.
SSS is an intelligence organization, and the operations are driven by intelligence. Now, don't forget that this is not an SSS, a complete SSS operation. The statement issued said a joint team for security operatives. A joint team. So that the SSS will address the press does not mean they take full responsibility for it. There's a proverb in my place that if you must glue long teeth, you must also glue long lips to cover it. It is illegal and unlawful for private individuals to store arms. So if it's something because of, we should have been more careful, not let him get down. I think he played into the hands of the security agency, and of course, the information must have been leaked from his people who also don't want to run into problems. So intelligence is about acquiring early actionable information to enable neutralize any intended evil act. I think that's what happened.
That's a good place to let it rest. I'm afraid that we're going to have to wrap it up at this point. I most sincerely thank you, Captain Aliyu Umar, retired security expert as well, doing exceptionally marvelously well, giving us these kind of information anytime we come to you for soccer, as well as Mr. Oladehinde Ariyo, security expert. Always a pleasure having you to straighten out these kinds of issues and giving us a better understanding and better perspectives to it, as well as Mr. Mike Ejiofor, the former boss of the DSS, for your insightful thoughts on these two very delicate and important arrests that we're seeing that could, I don't know, some people say that it could flame up the country, but we're hoping that we're not going to get to that point. And to you for being part of the show, many thanks indeed for watching here on Control TV News Global. Bye for now.